So, as you guys know, we have historically, after NoteExpo sent out post-event surveys, we decided that we do post-event surveys. So everybody likes general sessions, they like breakout sessions, they like panel discussions. But sometimes people are like, well, some of the sessions are too long. You know, I don't like sitting there for 45 minutes or an hour or however that is. So we had this idea last year that we kicked off that we were going to start doing what we refer to as Note Talks, right, which is a play on TED Talks, but TED Talks is also trademarked, so we're not calling these TED Talks, so we're calling these Note Talks. And for those of you that are not familiar, TED Talk is some 10, 12-minute talks where people come up here, tell their story, inspire you, kind of tell you, what they've done, and hopefully give you some inspiration to take that to the next level. Last year we did 8 of them. I think we did them all in the morning on Saturday, and they were pretty rapid fire. We did take a break in between. We had some feedback saying, hey, you should break them up a little bit, do some of them maybe on Friday, do some on Saturday. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do 3 of them right here before we close out, and then we're going to do 2 late morning tomorrow, or early morning tomorrow, I guess the second session tomorrow. So I've had some people, hey, I'd love to do a Note Talk, and I've had somewhere say, hey, would you like to do a Note Talk? And so we've got a great lineup. I'm going to do one at the very end, but we have 4 others that are going to do them. Tomorrow you will see Martha Speed do one, and you will see Jeff Watson do one. And today you're going to see myself and Tracy do one. And then to kick us off, we're going to get one right now. We're going to set the clock to 12. I told him I was going to cut it to 11 just to keep him focused. But we're going to give him 12 minutes. Don't give him 20 minutes. Let's change that clock to 12.
I'll take 20.
All right. And help me welcome Bill Bymel.
Good afternoon. Everyone can hear me, right? My name is Bill Bymel, and I have been an investor in the first lien non-performing loan space for just over a decade now. One of the main objections and concerns I hear from new investors getting into this business is that they don't want to be a debt collector. And who can blame you? I hate debt collectors. I never expected to be a debt collector myself. And when they call, they always call at the wrong time. Give you an example. Last summer, I was sitting in line at Disney World with my 13-year-old in line for Mine Train, turkey leg in my left hand, and the phone rings, local 407 number. I pick it up, and this is John Smeisler with Chase Bank. Click. Amongst political campaigns and overseas customer service and regular telemarketing, I would love to see all those people kind of disappear, wouldn't you? So, one of the interesting things about America is the fact that we have so much free credit. One of the other issues that comes along with that, we can buy houses that are leveraged, we can buy cars, we get easy credit. This is what makes America so great. But what comes along with that is that sometimes that debt can feel like a ball and chain around our legs. And God forbid something happens at home, you have a medical issue, or you lose a job, or some unforeseen expense. All of a sudden, that ball and chain starts to feel like a ticking time bomb. In 2008, that time bomb went off when the financial crisis hit. The financial markets froze, millions of people lost their jobs, millions of people lost their homes. The opportunity that provided was it opened up a new Wild West in the secondary mortgage market. It allowed people like you and I an opportunity to stand in the footsteps of the lender. There were so many bad loans a decade ago that the banks had no option but to sell it off in bulk to private investors. When my partners and I decided to get into this business, we hated the idea of debt collection, but we liked the business. So we saw inefficiencies in the mortgage market, in the mortgage servicing market, and we made a pledge that we wanted to fundamentally change the way loss mitigation is done in this country. Sounds a little highfalutin. It probably was a high goal. But we wanted to do things differently. And one of the ways that we did that was by starting to realize what position the borrower is in. If they're not making a payment to us on a mortgage, they probably have other bills that they're not paying. Their credit cards, their cars, God forbid, whatever is going on. This all feels like a major weight on their shoulders. We've all probably been there at some point ourselves. And all of this is a good reason why people don't want to communicate. This is why they don't want to pick up the phone. And it creates this inefficiency in mortgage servicing and loss mitigation because you can't get anyone to talk to you. And the only way to resolve a non-performing loan is to sit down with the borrower. I mean, it's not the only way, but the fastest way is to sit down and make an effort. I've seen borrowers change their phone numbers. That's very common. I've seen them change their jobs to avoid us showing up. I've seen them change their names. Anything to avoid the embarrassment of having to deal with this situation. And what I realize all along is that these are folks that are swimming in a sea of debt, and all they're looking for is for somebody to throw them a lifeline. What they don't realize is that that's us. So when we decide we want to try to bring our borrowers ashore, one of the first things I say to them is, I plan to be your last point of contact until we get this resolved. Most loans, when they go into default, change servicers several times. That becomes more of a frustration for borrowers. So I say right off the bat, I'm here to resolve this with you here today, and I'll be your last point of contact until it's done. Number two, I will say, I'm private equity. I'm not Bank of America. I'm not some mortgage servicer with a set of rules that if you don't fit into this box, I can't help you. I can make individual decisions as a private investor. If I can't make the decision myself, I can pick up the phone and get that decision made. Now, those two things alone usually get borrowers talking to us. And the magic of loss mitigation is having a respectful conversation with your borrowers. This is what most of my borrowers look like when I first meet them. Some of them don't want to talk even after I've said, hey, we're here to help and whatnot. And so one of the avenues that we take that's been very effective to us is a forced mediation, a court-ordered mediation. This is a special sauce for us. Through our foreclosure action or through bankruptcy court, we motion the judge to require the parties to sit down. They can't hide from us anymore. I'll share one example, a gentleman that I talk about in my book. In the book, I call him Persisting Cookies, obviously not his real name. We'll call him Mr. Purple. This isn't him, but we'll call him Mr. Purple. When Mr. Purple's loan was purchased by us, I think it was 2012, my agent showed up, he cursed them out. He had plenty of reason to be angry. He had endured much humiliation from debt collectors, folks that were threatening him, loan modification applications that went unreviewed, paperwork missing. He had plenty of reason to be angry and frustrated with his situation. He would actually yell my agents off his property. One time he actually came out with a baseball bat. So we stopped going to the house, obviously. You can imagine, though, what the feeling he had, the cynicism that Mr. Purple had when he got a notice that there was a mediation being forced by the court. He couldn't avoid this. The judge was saying you had to show up. And so what did he and his attorney look like when they showed up at that mediation? This was them. The walls people put up to defend themselves can be very hard to scale. So we pick at it brick by brick. When he sat down with his arms crossed in mediation and his attorney saying, there's no chance that this is worth our time, I had to do something to shake it up. I said, I'm going to be your last point of contact. I'm private equity. It didn't really sink in. I said, we're not here to collect a debt today. Now, granted, we're debt collectors, but I wasn't there to collect the debt. As a matter of fact, in mediation, the number 3 most important thing is I never talk about the debt. I go to you benefits. What can I do for you? What's your situation? How can I help you? I apologize. This guy started to think that something was a little strange with me, but I was hoping to get through and point out the fact that we aren't like other banks. We don't constrict to one set of rules. We're willing to work with our borrowers. I started to listen to him. I stopped collecting and I started respecting. Once we got back on a level playing field, he started to tell me a story. Mr. Purple had plenty of reason to default. He was a roofer living in West Palm Beach. In 2008, half his business dried up when the market crashed. A year later, he fell off a roof, couldn't work for 6 months. 1 missed payment became 2. The snowball effect ensued. His servicer didn't want to help him out, wouldn't forbear, and you can imagine where it went from there. He got transferred from loan to loan. I'd like to say that these mediations are easy, but they're not. We sat in that meeting with Mr. Purple for 4.5 hours that day. There were times that you could cut the tension with a knife, but the key was non-judgmental, respectful, reestablish a level playing field with the borrower. Show them that you care. They're just like anyone else. When I start to listen to his story, I actually started to like him. The guy that chased my agents off his property, I realized behind that thick exterior, it was all embarrassment. This is a guy who just wanted a second chance to save his home. So after 4.5 hours, we settled. We gave him a loan modification. He owed us about $600,000 at the time. The house was worth $450,000. Number 5, and was it 5 or 4? Number 5 most important thing that I did in that day was I created equity for him again. I got him vested back in that property. Instead of being upside down, I modified his loan to $420,000. He had $30,000 of equity as long as he carried through on the trial plan, permanent modification, and I gave him a win. That guy who was crossing his arms, angry and cynical, was now my friend. And what started as a very contentious and was very uncomfortable ended up being a relationship that I still have today. I actually still get Christmas cards and fruit baskets every once in a while. Now, I didn't even have to tell him that I paid $250,000 for that loan. With expenses, maybe I was into it for $270,000. That's what the market was like back in 2012 when we bought that loan. I lived up to my promise. I stuck with him for 3 years. And about 3 years later, he was still performing. We sold it on the secondary market for close to $400,000. Obviously, it was a win for us, but the money is one thing. What matters to us is that we can make a difference in people's lives. We could do something good for the community. We could change someone's perspective, turn a bad situation into a good. That's a win-win. I hope you'll join my revolution.